Well, folks, it looks like us retro horror nerds are on our way to tumbling into a rare bit of good fortune. Just last month on this channel, I reviewed the 2002 Computer Artworks horror game The Thing, and in doing so, I even said, but I do have to mention that for all of the dozen or so games I've covered so far on this channel, this is actually the only one I genuinely want a remake for. And holy shit, I don't know what cosmic entity heard my plea, but here we have it. The Thing is being resurrected by Night Dive Studios, the studio that, knock on wood, seem to be answering the prayers of retro gaming nerds everywhere as they self-identify as specializing in finding classic, abandoned, and forgotten PC games and bringing them back into the hands of gamers. However, as of late, they've been dipping into quite a lot more than just PC games, and this group of folks ain't just talk. They've done a bunch of highly acclaimed remasters in the last decade or so, such as System Shock and the Turok series, Doom 64, Power Slave, Quake 2, Shadow Man. These guys have their hands in a little bit of everything, and they seem to be a very promising warrior in the battle of game preservation. However, there is a very good reason that when I reviewed the game, I said I wanted a remake and not a remaster, and this version of The Thing is being touted as a remaster, and I think that's still very exciting. However, when I first saw the announcement trailer for the game, I have to be honest, I was of two minds about it. On one hand, I was like, wow, this is so cool. I can't believe this is happening. What a cool project. But on the other hand, I was like, remaster? I recognize the goal of this team seems to be revitalizing old games and preventing them from becoming abandonware and keeping them alive and all that jazz. But I just played the original a month beforehand, and let me tell you, a remaster, at least in my mind, may not cut it. Because for every great idea the game implemented and created were 100 things that didn't work and feel extremely dated and just jank overall. But I don't think the remaster is necessarily going to be bad. Night Dive has more than proven their mettle when it comes to breathing life into old properties, but between the janky companion system, infection system that was scripted and was a pretty good idea, still left the original development team wanting for a lot more. A horrible weapon system and combat system that relied on simply locking onto enemies and doing little to no aiming of your own, enemy variety being pretty lacking overall, this game had a lot of problems. I needed to know more, and the studio was more than happy to oblige as their team has started a podcast, the first episode of which being posted onto their YouTube channel just a week and a half after the original announcement, where they seek to answer a multitude of questions about the project. One of my biggest questions I had about the game was answered straight away, which was whether or not there would be any members of the original game's dev team returning for the remaster, and sure enough, the game's director and technical director, Mark Atkinson, is returning, being the first person involved on the Deep Dive podcast. So they're letting us know right up front, in no uncertain terms, yes, there is collaboration here. Boom, first episode with the original director, which is really cool. One of the numerous things that I saw in this interview that gave me a lot of optimism in the remaster is when Mark explains how he got involved, but specifically what he says regarding the questions the team has been asking him in their collaboration.
Night Dive have just got this amazing reputation for doing these remasters really well. So when they came along and said, "Hey, this is happening. We got the rights," I was fully up for it, and I've tried to help out as much as possible and just kind of explain how things work in the engine and how things work in some of the gameplay and help steer them. Questions like, did you do this for a good reason, or did you just run out of time? Or was it because you couldn't do it on the PS2?
Okay, let's repeat one of those lines for those in the back. Did you do this for a good reason, or did you just run out of time? This tells me that from the jump, Night Dive is not only trying to port the game and make it look better, they're actually trying to expand on the original game and fill in the holes that may have been left for a variety of reasons, ideally making the game what the original team would have wanted from the beginning. I don't think I have to tell you why that makes me super optimistic, especially when it comes to games preservation. That's kind of exactly what you would hope for. You want to keep the original game alive, bring it to modern audiences, show them the game in its best possible form, but without necessarily recreating the entire thing from the ground up. And that, I think, is spectacular. A lot of the interview with Mark Atkinson surrounds textures, making the game look more modern, but that kind of goes without saying in a remaster, so a lot of the graphical part of the conversation didn't necessarily interest me very much. And I will admit, even though I am very passionate about games preservation, I am a little bit nervous how this game is going to be pulled off in a remaster when there are so many things from a core DNA level that I just don't think are that great within the original. But it seems like some of my worries, maybe even a lot of my worries, can be taken care of because they did actually talk a little bit about what they're going to update when it comes to gameplay.
There's this kind of contention between where do you draw the line between a remaster or a remake?
Yeah.
And so we're going to try and fix some quality of life issues which we weren't happy about but kind of run out of time on. But I think there's a lot of stuff in how the weapon aiming works, how the reloading works. If you hold the grenade too long, it blows up in your hand, which I always hated.
Yeah.
There's a couple of areas where there's like really not enough ammo and you get kind of stuck without ammo and there's nothing you can do. So we get to also do a pass with just polishing up that kind of stuff as well and making it. It's also a bit hard for modern audiences as well.
It's got some friction to it. Yeah, it's got some friction to it.
There's a couple of bits that are really, you can really get your ass kicked, and that's not good for if somebody really just wants to play through it. It was normal back in the day that if you got a game that you'd only get halfway through it, get stuck, and you'd
have to start over.
Yeah, it's not really acceptable now. So it's not like we're doing story mode. It's still going to be tricky, but there's at least going to be some difficulties scaling available. To make it a little bit more accessible to the modern taste as well. So.
This is very good news. He pretty much listed everything I had problems with in my initial playthrough of the game, all of which I also mentioned in my review. So, man, I don't know. This could be really special. I mean, if they're going to be updating stuff like ammo, health items, checkpoints, aiming, and the way weapons work in general, this could be the perfect culmination of old meets new, which is what we're always looking for in a good remaster. Big fat caveat though, he does confirm that auto aiming will return in the remake, but it sounds like they're trying to balance it out a little bit more with just how heavy a role it plays, so that's something of a consolation. Look, I'm not expecting there to not be any auto aim in the remaster. It's obviously a huge part of the mechanics and the way that the engine worked in the original game, so I guess as long as they're saying they're going to try and make it a little bit better, then I guess I'm happy with that. He also mentions the idea of including a classic mode, which in my opinion, every remaster should include if it can, so I would love to see that. But yeah, that's pretty much all the news we have right now about the thing. I was definitely looking forward to hear more about the companion system and how that works, since that's the kind of the focal point of the game and something that doesn't necessarily work all the time.
All right. I couldn't do it.
But it looks like they're going to be doing a lot more episodes down the line. They say they want to make this a continued series, so the Deep Dive podcast is going to be a great place to keep your eye on for more updates, as well as this channel, where I'm going to be covering a lot of the news that I feel like is newsworthy about the game and plenty of other horror games in general. I'm trying to do a lot more news stuff with my channel, as well as playing through and reviewing every PS2 horror game. So if any of that is interesting to you, please leave me a like and a subscribe and a comment and the whole deal. I request a lot from you. No, I'm just kidding. Not really. I appreciate you guys for watching the video. Special thanks to my Patreon supporters, Mr. Nobody and Sakura Blue, as well as my new channel member, Killer J. I do have a channel subscriptions memberships thing now where I watch through, one of the tiers is watching through my old videos and doing commentary on them. If you're a giant nerd like me and you like knowing about how people's processes work, then it might be worth it for you. It's cheap as hell. But that's it, guys. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. I'll smell you later.